Stereotyping and civility on the CWI campus. Sources say that there has been a general decline in civility in the U.S. today, and that it is a widespread problem. One area of negative interaction between individuals that perpetuates incivility is the act of stereotyping, which often leads to the formation of prejudice, bias, and discrimination. People who are stereotyped are also placed at a disadvantage, leading to negative consequences. The purpose of this research and study is to identify how stereotyping causes incivility on college campuses, and to explore whether stereotyping is a problem at the College of Western Idaho. The consequences of stereotyping can adversely affect college administration, faculty, instructors, staff, and students, causing incivility. It therefore follows that an educational institution should examine how stereotyping can cause incivility on college campuses in order to find positive solutions, create programs, and recommend policies to encourage an all-inclusive and non-discriminatory environment and to facilitate a more civil dialogue. The fundamental goal of this study was to determine the prevalence, incidence, and severity of stereotyping at the College of Western Idaho. Survey questions directed towards students were inquiries about perception and experiences related to stereotyping on the CWI campus, and questions related to student demographics, affiliations, and involvements to ascertain which student populations might be at more risk for issues related to stereotyping, discrimination, and incivility. Although the data indicates that 10% of CWI students have encountered stereotypical behavior, the results indicated that stereotyping may be an encroaching problem on CWI college campuses, and that efforts should be made to improve campus inclusivity and to promote cultural competency and awareness in order to prevent the incivilities and consequences that arise with negative stereotyping, bias, and discrimination. Dr. Yolanda Barnes, a former employee at the College of Western Idaho, worked for numerous years at CWI and served as their Diversity Committee Chair. Dr. Barnes completed a survey for this study in which she stated that she had witnessed a faculty member make an inappropriate joke towards a student, and this joke made several other students who were present feel uncomfortable. Dr. Barnes found the remark to be unacceptable and especially troubling because CWI serves a large Latinx population. She experienced stereotyping from a faculty member at CWI due to her gender, and she thought that perhaps it stemmed from the member's religious beliefs. She felt that there may have been more instances of stereotyping and discrimination towards her as well because she is African American. She said colleagues across the campus saw things that I was used to accepting, so if I did experience any stereotyping or discrimination, I would let it go. She stated that this was because as a Black woman, she had become accustomed to being treated a certain way. Dr. Barnes went on to state that she had caught herself stereotyping older adult students in the past, and that nobody is immune to stereotyping. People need to be educated about how to be inclusive and in treating others equitably. All in all, Dr. Barnes feels that CWI currently has a mild issue with stereotyping instances as compared to other academic institutions, and prior to her departure in July of 2019, she created a diversity module within CWI's website as a resource for faculty members and students. According to some sources, stereotypes can be defined as preconceived notions about the characteristics and attributes of a group and its members that shape how people think about and respond to a particular group. Stereotypes affect how people perceive, process information about, and respond to group members, which are transmitted through socialization, the media, and language and discourse. Stereotypes have a constructive use, but usually are referred to as constraining. Stereotypes can not only promote discrimination by systematically influencing perceptions, interpretations, and judgments, but they also arise from and are reinforced by discrimination and justifying disparities between groups. Stereotyping can cause incivility on college campuses in many ways, and there are various sorts of stereotypes that occur. Some examples include racial stereotyping, group stereotyping, sociocultural, socioeconomical stereotyping, and these may be racial and ethnic groups or minorities, genders, academic abilities, disabilities, economic standing, or even simple physical characteristic attributes, outward appearances, and random demographics like age. When describing how stereotyping on college campuses can cause incivility, it is important to define what is meant by that term. Incivility is generally an intentional, deviant behavior with ambiguous intent to harm the target, in violation of norms for mutual respect that is manifested through a host of inappropriate social interactions, causing an atmosphere of disrespect, conflict, and stress. Stereotyping occurs across college campuses worldwide, and in the U.S., one of the most prominent sorts of ethnic and racial stereotyping, most frequently affecting African Americans, Hispanics, and Asian populations. It is said that African American college students have one of the lowest retention and degree completion rates nationwide. This has been largely attributed to the power of stereotypes and stereotype threat. For instance, in academic settings, African Americans have been habitually stereotyped as unintelligent and lazy, and Hispanics as uneducated and not as smart or productive as white students. Sources say that these stereotypes have functioned as the basis for these groups to be denied equal access and opportunity within our education system, causing differential treatment, barriers to equity, discrimination, and negative physical and psychological consequences. The officer team of the CWI chapter of the PTK Honor Society created a study and conducted a campus-wide anonymous student survey to evaluate the prevalence of stereotypical behavior at CWI's campuses, in which numerous questions were posed in order to get an accurate assessment. The CWI Student Stereotyping Survey consisted of questions related to whether there is a stereotypical behavior exhibited at CWI, and if so, how prevalent that might be. There were other inquiries addressing whether students felt that they had experienced discrimination as a result of said stereotyping. CWI students were also asked whether they had any ideas to make the campus culture more inclusive. Then PTK student researchers posed more questions regarding student demographics in order to assess whether reports of stereotypical behavior might be correlated with certain student demographic characteristics. Lastly, students completing the survey gave their informed consent and were given a trigger warning to read. Student responses were encouraged to answer only questions they felt comfortable with, and were informed that the survey was anonymous and that responses would be kept confidential. College counseling service contacts were also added to the survey in case any students felt they needed these services regarding any topics covered in the survey. Survey respondents consisted of a total of 205 students, resulting in a 2.28% campus response rate. Surveyors posed the research question, is there stereotypical behavior at CWI? The survey showed that 8.8% of students reported that they had experienced discrimination due to negative stereotypes. Researchers estimated that 10% of students would be a good baseline to determine significance of the CWI student population who have reported experiencing stereotypical behavior due to the fact that researchers made many attempts to find supporting data but were unable to find any academic sources to support any percentage rate significant of stereotyping at colleges, which only further proves that there needs to be additional studies performed. Researchers also reached out to several CWI instructors, including Associate Professor of Psychology Heather Schooner, and none could give an absolute significant percentage number for this study. Therefore, student PTK researchers developed a null and alternative hypothesis, in which the null hypothesis is that 10% of students have experienced stereotypical behavior at CWI. The CWI survey data indicates that 10% of CWI students have encountered stereotypical behavior, which is a generous number of students who are currently being affected by stereotypical behavior at CWI. However, in another question from the survey, students were asked if they thought stereotyping was a problem at CWI, and about 62% of students did not believe stereotyping to be a problem. 21% said a slight issue, 14% an average occurrence, and about 3% reported it to be a moderate to severe problem. About 17% of students surveyed reported that they had noticed themselves stereotyping a member of the campus community. Almost 1/5 of those surveyed, and 8.8% of students reported experiencing discrimination due to negative stereotypes. Demographically, most students, 69%, surveyed identified as white, 14% as Hispanic, and the remaining 17 were either Asian, Native American, African American, mixed race, or gave ambiguous answers, or made statements unrelated to the choices given. The majority of respondents' ages ranged from 18 to 35, which would comprise 85% of the survey respondents. 32% of respondents were male, 60% were female. About 5% refused to answer the question, and the other 3% reported being intersex, identified as gender binary, or felt that the question was irrelevant. The students reported that their sexual orientation as 72% straight, 15% bisexual, 5% gay, and 8% as others. Student affiliations and involvement were also assessed in this survey. When asked what their religious affiliations were, 39% of students said unaffiliated with any religion, but considered spiritual non-religious. 20% were Christian or Protestant, 16% atheist, 12% Christian or Catholic, 6% Christian or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 2% Muslim, 2% agnostic, 2% pagan or Wiccan, and 1% Buddhist. The majority of respondents had been attending CWI for 1 to 3 semesters, and the second largest group of respondents had been attending for 4 to 8 semesters. 21% of survey respondents participated in student clubs, honor societies, or student governments. 79% did not.